The corridors of the Arxian citadel were too quiet. Elias Vorn's boots echoed with every step across the obsidian floor. Tall, jagged pillars loomed around him, etched with the histories of 1,000 conquered worlds. Overhead, dim green light filtered through the translucent ceiling, not sunlight, but filtered plasma from the orbital reactors above. Cold, sterile, imperial. He'd walked these halls before. Years ago, with metals fresh on his chest and blood still wet on his armor, he'd been paraded through this monument to Tlaxan's supremacy. Today, no fanfare awaited. Just silence. And a warning he knew they would ignore. A pair of guards stepped aside as he approached the War Council's chamber. One sneered, a younger officer, no doubt briefed on Elias's eccentric reputation. The doors hissed open. 12 towering seats ringed the chamber. Alien faces peered down with imperial indifference. Their skin gleamed like polished silver. Strategos Velrix Cahail sat at the center, draped in ceremonial armor that had never seen combat. His expression was the same as it had always been, calculated disdain. "Veteran Vorn," Velrix said, his voice precise. "You requested audience. Speak." Elias bowed slightly, then approached the projection dais. A flick of his talon brought the holofeed to life. Images, reports, combat logs. All centered on a single keyword, Terra. "I fought beside humans during the Crimson Siege of Vorta-9," Elias began. "I saw a dozen worlds fall. None like that one." A rotating feed showed grainy footage, a single human soldier, caked in ash and blood, holding a ruined position alone. No backup. No ammunition. Still advancing. They adapt. They learn. They break every rule of engagement, you know. A low murmur rippled through the chamber. A counselor leaned forward. "We've reviewed the Terran data. Their population is fractured. Their technology decades behind." Elias snapped, louder than intended. "They're not your usual prey." Velrix's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "They improvise. They weaponize failure. Where we optimize by design, they overcome by necessity. They're not strong because of superiority. They're strong because they have no alternative." Silence. Velrix stood. "We've tolerated the Terran colonies long enough. Gara 7 defied protocol. We will not allow rebellion to take root. You're not ready for what's down there." Velrix stepped closer. "You're emotional. Unreliable. You forget your place." Elias held his ground. "You're sending soldiers into a war they don't understand." The chamber grew colder. "I have approved the deployment of the 9th Armada," Velrix said flatly. "Full orbital control. Shock troops. Wipe out resistance in a week." Elias stared at him. "And if they don't fight fair?" "They never do." Velrix smiled. "But this time, they won't get the chance." Outside, the sky over Arxian Prime was filled with warships. Sleek dreadnoughts shaped like barbed daggers slid through the atmosphere, flanked by swarms of escort vessels. The 9th Armada, the Empire's sledgehammer. It had broken rebellions, wiped out hive fleets, extinguished 2 species in its wake. Elias watched them rise from the Citadel Tower. His reflection stared back from the viewport, weary eyes, scarred scales, honor medals dulled by time. "You tried," came a voice behind him. Admiral Torith, another veteran. Older. Smarter. Still a good soldier. "I told them the truth," Elias muttered. "They don't want truth. They want obedience. They won't gather from humans." Torith exhaled through flared gills. "You still remember that kid on Vorta-9?" Elias nodded. "Held a pass for 18 hours. Broken arm. No ammo. Just rage and a bayonet. You really think this war will go the same way?" "No," Elias said. "This one will go worse." Torith was silent. Then, "Good luck, old friend. You've made your warning. And they'll bury it." Across the stars, on the jungle world of Gara 7, the sky began to darken. The first signs were thin black lines streaking the heavens, entry trails from descending Imperial dropships. From the forest floor, they looked like burning scars across a violet-blue sky. Inside an underground bunker carved into a limestone ridge, Captain Layla Grant reviewed satellite intercepts. Her hair was tied back in a tight braid, her fatigue stained from months of field work. She'd known this day would come. "ETA on first wave?" she asked. Her adjutant, Ramirez, looked up from his terminal. 2 hours. They're coming heavy. Good, she said. She stepped outside. The jungle buzzed with life, insects, animals, birds. But beyond that, there was silence. The kind of silence that only ever came before war. "We ready?" she asked into her comm. "All teams in position," came the reply. "Traps set. Signal jammers live. Vultures in the trees." She nodded. "Let them land." Ramirez hesitated. "Ma'am, you sure we can hold?" Layla looked up at the sky. Her voice was calm. "We're not going to hold. We're going to bleed them." Back on Arxian Prime, Elias watched the feed go dark as the last of the armada vanished into hyperspace. He turned away, the distant hum of reactors pulsing beneath his feet. Behind him, banners hung from the ceiling, symbols of conquest, of victories long past. But there was no banner for Earth. No emblem of defeat. Not yet. He left the Citadel without speaking to anyone. No send-off. No honor guard. Just the low, echoing sound of retreating footsteps. And somewhere far away, on a planet wrapped in jungle and steel, the war he had tried to stop was already beginning. The dropships screamed through Gara 7's atmosphere like iron fangs falling from the sky. The heat of their descent scorched the air. Jungle creatures scattered beneath them. Trees cracked under the pressure of the shockwaves. Tlaxon Centurion Caver stood at the front ramp of his vessel, arms crossed behind his back. His armor gleamed like black obsidian, inscribed with the Empire's crest, a snake devouring a planet. Behind him, rows of soldiers checked weapons, calibrated scanners, and activated exocets. He turned to address his unit. "Sector Delta 9. Dense jungle. High humidity. No major resistance expected. Orders are to sweep, pacify, and signal for orbital staging. Simple." A younger soldier glanced up. "Sir, what if the humans—" "They're scattered colonists." Caver cut him off. "Farmers with rifles. You've seen the projections." Still, something tugged at the edge of his thoughts. The air had weight. The kind that didn't come from weather. The dropship landed with a crunch of stone and soil. The hatch hissed. Caver stepped into a wall of heat and humidity so thick it felt alive. The jungle towered around them, thick vines, twisting trunks, leaves the size of armor plates. Visibility was minimal. Comm signals bounced erratically. "Form up," he ordered. "Standard advance pattern. Drones ahead." They moved in formation, armor servos humming. Drones flitted ahead, scanning. No movement. No signs of Terran presence. Until the first soldier vanished. There was no scream. Just a soft metallic clatter, then nothing. The formation halted. Caver turned, narrowed his eyes. "Report." The soldier was gone. Only his rifle remained, half submerged in a patch of disturbed earth. Then came the second loss, a shriek high and sharp, from the rear. Caver spun. Red mist sprayed across the undergrowth. "Eyes up! Check the canopy!" But it wasn't from above. It was beneath them. The ground exploded. Improvised mines, layered with shards of jagged scrap, ceramic ball bearings, and pressure triggers, sent 3 soldiers flying. Their suits cracked like eggs. Screams echoed between trees. "Fall back! Regroup!" Caver shouted. The jungle replied with fire. Flames ignited from seemingly nowhere, streaking through the underbrush. Smoke filled the air. Shadows danced between trees, darting too fast for scanners to lock on. Gunfire raked the formation from unseen angles. They weren't facing colonists. They were facing predators. In a camouflaged blind above the kill zone, Captain Layla Grant watched the ambush unfold through a cracked pair of binoculars. Her face was stone. Confirmed, 1 mech squad wiped, 2 squads retreating into kill path Bravo. Her sniper whispered beside her. They took the bait. Layla didn't smile. Trigger phase 2. A silent signal was sent. In the valley below, Tlaxan reinforcements rushed to flank the engagement. As they entered the narrow ravine, charges buried in cliff walls detonated in sequence. The cliffs collapsed, burying vehicles and troops in a rain of rock and fire. Layla lowered her binoculars. That'll keep them busy. Elsewhere, Black Vulture's Team 3 moved through the trees like wraiths. Clad in light reactive armor and scent masking gel, the 5-man unit advanced toward a Tlaxan outpost detected 2 clicks from the first drop zone. They carried no lights, spoke no words. The jungle didn't notice them. The outpost sat in a shallow basin, surrounded by a flimsy perimeter. 3 sentries patrolled, distracted, overheated, annoyed. They didn't expect infiltration. Not from humans. Not this fast. The vultures struck in absolute silence. One by one, the guards were neutralized. A garrote. A knife under a jaw. A blade slipped between armor seams. No alarms. Inside, Vulture leader Ramirez planted a shortwave transmitter inside the enemy comms console. A fake evacuation order was sent to surrounding Tlaxan patrols, directing them into freshly mined zones. Confusion would spread. Friendly fire would begin. As they exited, Ramirez marked the base's command post with 3 slashes of Terran crimson. Then they vanished. Hours later, Velrix watched the first reports roll in. Casualties. Ambushes. Tactical inconsistencies. He blinked in irritation. Centurion Caver's signal ceased 20 minutes ago, his aide said carefully. 37 units lost contact. 32 more report sensor disruption. Multiple anomalous readings. Velrix's jaw clenched. Deploy psychic suppressors. Burn the jungle from orbit if needed. Sir, orbital fire may hit our own. I said burn it. Elias Vorn, standing in the corner, finally spoke. They're not fighting you. They're luring you. Velrix turned sharply. I don't recall requesting your counsel. You're not in control of the battlefield, Elias said. They are. Velrix leaned in. You give them too much credit. And you've given them none, Elias replied. Which is why you're bleeding soldiers in vines and shadows. In the field, Tlaxan morale was fracturing. Fire teams isolated. Communications jammed. Traps around every corner. Drones hijacked and turned against their owners. Trees whispering with strange voices in Terran tongues. One soldier stumbled back to base camp with shaking limbs and vacant eyes. Blood on his armor. He collapsed without a word. The only sound from his calm unit was a repeated phrase. You are prey. You are prey. You are prey. The message looped for an hour before anyone had the nerve to shut it off. Captain Layla stood beneath the jungle canopy, watching a plasma plume rise in the distance. They're still trying orbital strikes, her radio chirped. She wiped sweat from her brow. Let them waste their ammo. Ramirez's voice came through. Vultures report a kill count of 3 command posts, 17 vehicles, unknown foot soldiers. Good, Layla said. Phase 3 in 24 hours. We let the jungle do the rest. She looked around. The vines. The heat. The shifting shadows. This place belonged to her now, not as a soldier, but as something else entirely. They came to conquer, she said aloud. Let's teach them what it means to trespass. The jungle was silent. Not the peaceful kind, but the tense, crouching quiet of a world holding its breath before something breaks. Elias Vorn moved through the underbrush alone. No escort. No weapons. Just him, and the rustle of distant movement. The Empire had collapsed around him, and he was done giving warnings. He climbed the ridge carefully, favoring a leg torn decades ago by shrapnel. Below, smoldering wrecks dotted what had once been an Imperial forward base. Now, it was nothing but twisted steel and scorched soil. Flies buzzed over shattered helmets. The banners of the Empire lay in mud. He wasn't looking for survivors. Not Imperial ones. A voice stopped him just before the clearing. Don't move. It came from the trees. Calm. Controlled. A human voice. Elias froze. I'm unarmed. I know. A figure dropped down in front of him. Human. Mid-40s. Half of his face was covered by burn scar tissue. His armor was scratched raw, but functional. He carried no insignia. Just a jagged blade strapped to his thigh and a pair of steady, quiet eyes. Elias exhaled. I was hoping to find you. You came a long way, the man replied. I had nowhere else. They stood there for a moment, surrounded by the bones of war. Elsewhere, panic tightened its grip around the Tlaxan chain of command. Velrix limped through a ruined command tunnel, supported by 2 aides. His arm was wrapped in a makeshift splint, his ornate armor darkened with soot. His face, once unreadable, now cracked with doubt. Reports had gone from bad to catastrophic. 32% force loss. Entire battalions swallowed by terrain. Equipment sabotaged from within. Outposts marked with crimson symbols, and no survivors. What's the last status of Sector 6? Velrix asked, voice strained. His aide hesitated. Gone, Strategos. All units presumed neutralized. Velrix stopped walking. They weren't soldiers. Sir? They were a message. He looked up at the sky. Gara 7's twin suns peeked through smoke and foliage. We never understood them. Not really. Then, softly, almost to himself. And now they've made sure we never forget. Layla Grant sat at a makeshift operations table, sipping water as a medic stitched her shoulder. Shrapnel. Not deep, but annoying. She barely noticed. Enemies pulled back from Ridge 14. Ramirez reported beside her. They're abandoning positions without engagement. Fear spreads faster than gunfire, she said, eyes fixed on a crumpled Tlaxan helmet. She picked it up. Studied the deep slash across the crest. We've broken their line. Ramirez nodded. Do we push? No, she said. Let them leave. Let them remember. He looked at her. That it? Layla's voice dropped. We weren't here to win a war. We were here to show them what a real one feels like. Back on the ridge, Elias sat on a tree stump, across from the human warrior. No introductions. They didn't need names. I was there on Vorta 9, Elias said. You held the pass alone. The man tilted his head. You were Biartari command. I remember. You should have died. I almost did. Elias stared at him. Why keep fighting? The human shrugged. It wasn't about orders anymore. We lost comms on day 2. After that, it was just survival. And spite. Spite? The man nodded. They expected us to break. That's the trick, right? Don't break. Become something worse. Elias let that settle. You knew they'd never listen, the man added. I tried anyway. And now? Elias looked over the valley, thick with smoke, ash, and broken metal. Now I understand what I saw back then. It wasn't rage or glory. It was defiance carved into the bone. The human stood slowly. We'll bury our dead. But not them. Elias raised an eyebrow. No graves for the Empire, the man said. Just warnings. Above Gara 7, what remained of the Tlaxan fleet prepared for withdrawal. Burned hulls drifted among the debris. Command channels were chaos. Orders contradicted each other. Officers refused landings. Some ships jumped early. Others didn't respond at all. Velrix stood on the bridge of his personal carrier, staring out at the jungle world below. His second-in-command approached. Shall we initiate full retreat? Velrix didn't answer. He placed a small data cube on the console, a copy of Elias's original report. It had gathered dust in archives. Now, he saw it for what it was, a prophecy ignored. Sir? Velrix turned. Mark Gara 7 as quarantine territory. No further incursions. No claims. But the council. They're already dead. They just don't know it yet. Down on the surface, Layla and her team moved silently through a field of husks, shattered exosuits, scorched drones, trees snapped like bones. Each helmet they passed was set upright, facing east. Eyes toward Earth. At the edge of the battlefield, a child walked beside her, maybe 10 years old. Dirt on her cheeks. Bandage on one arm. She picked up a small piece of metal and held it out. "What's this?" she asked. Layla took it. It was part of a Tlaxan rank plate. Bent. Worthless now. "A reminder," Layla said, handing it back. "Of what they brought here." The girl nodded, then ran ahead toward the camp. Layla looked up at the jungle canopy. Rain began to fall. Not a cleansing rain. A memory rain. And it would linger. Elias turned to the soldier. "What happens now?" The man pulled a rag from his pocket, wiped ash from his knife. "Now," he said. "Now we wait. And when the next empire comes knocking." He let the silence speak. Elias nodded. "I hope they ask better questions." "They won't," the man said. "But we'll answer the same." He offered his hand. Elias took it. Not as enemies. Not as allies. But as two survivors who understood one simple truth. Never underestimate the species that buries its dead with one hand and sharpens a blade with the other.